Hello everybody, and welcome to my channel. My name is David Novak. I used to be a poet and playwright, but since January of last year, 2022, have become primarily a reader. It's a goal that I have long had and never made any headway until I really sat down and decided to do something about it. My main stumbling block was that I was a lazy reader. Laziness is not overcome in a day, but since January of last year, I have been making an effort. I have a logbook of everything that I read, and when I finish one book, I try to plunge right into the next book. I allot myself a certain amount of time per day to read, and that makes last year the year in which I have read more than I ever have in any given year in my entire life. I expect this year will surpass last year. I'm not improving by leaps and bounds, but little by little, and so far I'm very happy with the progress that I have made. A large part of that inspiration is due to BookTube, which means that quote-unquote corner of YouTube in which people make videos talking about books. As I said, it has inspired me to read. I've read things that I would not have read had I not watched somebody's video talking about a certain book. Last year, my reading was entirely of my own choice, I think. No, I take that back. There was one or two books I read that were BookTube inspired. But I would like to talk about one book which I read last year, and there's a reason for that. I just watched a video posted today at the YouTube channel or BookTube channel, John David, to which I will put a link in the description, in which he makes the announcement about a book sale currently going on at Princeton University Press until May 26th. So there's about a week left to go. And I had thought about posting a video like this regardless, because one of the books which I read last year was published by Princeton University Press, and a 50% deal on it is a good deal. So that was the famous translation by David T. Roy of The Plum in the Golden Vase. It's published in 5 volumes, and I bought all of my copies used, but even with the best used price available, you can't beat the 50% sale that is going on now at Princeton. So I would recommend them to you. Now, just a caveat, I bought the paperback editions. I am very careful with my books. I treat them gingerly. And even so, in most cases, the bindings on these Princeton books broke. Not completely, but enough to where I doubt that you can get too many readings out of each volume. That said, I don't think I will read the book probably except one other time in my life if I live much longer than my current life expectancy. So I don't expect to read it again. But it is also a book wherein I would recommend, if you are comfortable with ebooks, I would recommend or would suggest that you might prefer an ebook on this, because the complete book in its currently available annotated edition is fairly hefty. So this is the 5 volumes. Whoa, almost dropped them onto the camera. And I'll show you the covers of each one. This is volume 1. Volume 2. Volume 3. Not that you really need to see the covers of these. It's a particularly ugly cover design. You would think they could have done a lot better than this, but they didn't. So that's how it goes. And see if you need to see any. There's nothing really of interest in the inside. Each volume has some illustrations, but nothing really special. Now, this 5-volume set is an annotated edition, and there's no real good reason that you need any of these annotations. It might be wise to wait until Penguin strikes some kind of deal with Princeton to publish a unannotated version of the David T. Roy translation. You definitely don't want another translation. I don't believe another one has been done. There have been abridgments, but you don't want an abridgment. So the book is known to Chinese readers as a great classic of pornography. However, I think the common judgment of the book, or the common reputation of the book, is misplaced. The book has plenty of sex scenes, but they are nothing more than that, just sex scenes as you might find in any typical Hollywood movie today, or a lot of novels written today in the West, regardless. And while they might serve some sort of an erotic interest to a reader who is searching for that kind of stimulation, I find them more to be just a slice of life. They reveal life in its wholeness in a sense in which a lot of novels don't. And so it's a different reading experience than you're going to have with another novel. Now, before you run out and buy these books, I would not recommend you rush in without having read another Chinese novel, perhaps. I mean, if you're into classics, then go for it. But you have to determine for yourself whether you think it's going to be the sort of thing that you want to read. Let me give you a sense of the story by reading the back. In this, well, this is for the first one. Well, let me read it from the last one, since the whole thing was done at that point. Nope, that's the second one. Why did I get them out of order? Oh, well. This is volume 5. That's what I want. This is the 5th and final volume in David Roy's celebrated translation of one of the most famous and important novels in Chinese literature. The Plum in the Golden Vase, or Qin Ping Mei, is an anonymous 16th century work that focuses on the domestic life of Xi Menqing, a corrupt, upwardly mobile merchant in a provincial town who maintains a harem of 6 wives and concubines. The novel, known primarily for its erotic realism, is also a landmark in the development of the narrative art form, not only from a specifically Chinese perspective, but in a world historical context. This complete and annotated translation aims to faithfully represent and elucidate all the rhetorical features of the original in its most authentic form, and thereby enable the Western reader to appreciate this Chinese masterpiece at its true worth. And indeed, it is probably the best you're going to see. So I recommend it. The only fault with the novel itself is that there are 5 chapters, I believe, that are not original to the book. Somehow the originals were either censored or lost and replaced by 5 chapters written by a decidedly inferior hand. You have to grit your teeth and bear it with those 5 translations. David Roy did the best he could, but they're abysmal, really, to have to slog through. But the novel is definitely worthwhile. On BookTube, it seems like you hear a lot of people talking about the Japanese classic Tale of Genji quite a lot. To my mind, this is a much more pleasurable read, though I have only read Genji once, so I will say no more about that book in contrast to this. This book, although it's set in a family compound that is not all that different from what you will find in the Japanese classic, the characters are much more relatable than you will find in that book. And the action is much more exciting than a succession of what we would call the adventures of a serial rapist. So that is the book, and I recommend it. And there's another book that Princeton has, which I would also recommend. I wish I had waited till there was a 50% off sale, which I have not read yet, but it's just something good to be made aware of, and that is the complete English translation of the Ramayana. So that is published by Princeton. I don't know what the asking price is, but for both of these books, 50% off is probably a good deal. Anyhow, that's what I wanted to say. I'm not affiliated in any way with Princeton, and as I say, their binding on the 5 books that I have read was not of quality, and the hardbound editions, which I believe are not available anymore, were absurdly pricey in used copies. So, thank you for stopping by.